Imagine you're married to the heir to $1 billion fortune. Your husband's family is loaded. You have given this man multiple children. And it's your birthday, and all you really want are tickets to Greece.
Tickets to Greece. A hat I can wear in Greece.
It's not a hat.
It's not. Oh, my A-game friend!
Eggs in it.
Great, I didn't gather eggs. You're welcome.
Thanks, honey.
You know what she wants. You can give her what she wants, and you give her something that she could do more chores with. I just saw an article about this content creator. Her name is Ballerina Farm. She has like millions of followers here on TikTok. And in the interview, she talks about how she basically works herself into exhaustion. Taking care of, I think they got 6 or 7 kids, if I'm not mistaken. No nanny. They only have a maid that comes in once a week. She is so exhausted that sometimes she has to lay in bed for a whole week. He can't even give her for her birthday rest. The gift of rest. A man that only sees you in terms of your labor should be a red flag. I don't care if you're cooking and cleaning for him in a 1-bedroom shack or if you're cooking and cleaning for him in a 10-bedroom mansion. It should still be a red flag. You are more than chores. You are more than labor. You are a person with thoughts and dreams and goals and aspirations outside of being a wife, outside of being a mother, and outside of what you can do for other people.
Has anyone else read the Sunday Times Ballerina Farm article that just released? Because this is insane. The interviewer goes to their farm, Ballerina Farm in Utah, and kind of basically shows what's going on behind the scenes from her TikToks. And it shows that, you know, even though she has money, a following on TikTok, a business, blah, 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 that she still has to follow her husband, which is basically, you know, what the Mormon doctrine says. And especially after when she did that pageant 11 days after, it was her choice to do that, and people were, like, there were some people supporting her, but this still shows that she is still kind of being controlled by her husband, and I don't like it. I don't like it. Just wait. So the interviewer asks how it feels to have all these millions of eyes watching them. And Hannah says, I feel like we're doing what God wants. And then Daniel says, we're on his errand a little bit. And then Hannah repeats, we're on his errand a little bit. So it's kind of giving Stepford wife. And then the interviewer asks, how do you feel about being called a tradwife in the tradwife movement? And then Daniel answers, and he says, we were already together doing what we are doing, and then tradwife came along. We can't help it. This is what we are. If we're trad dad, trad wife, so be it. And then Hannah kind of disagrees, and she says, I don't necessarily identify with it because we are traditional in the sense that it's a man and woman, we have children, but I do feel like we're paving a lot of paths that haven't been paved before. She is kind of right, where normally tradwives did not bring an income to a family, only the husband did. She is bringing a lot of business with her TikToks, and she's the face of Ballerina Farm, but still, she kind of still follows her husband, repeats what he says, kind of agrees with him. Sometimes, you know, like this, she didn't really agree with it, but she doesn't want to be too disagreeable to what he says. It gives off the sense that she just wants to not blindly follow him, but kind of, you know, follow his path, and he's the leader. I don't know, it's just weird. I feel like Daniel is, you know, saying this stuff just to say this stuff. Like, the interviewer asks, is the husband the head of the household? And he says, no, we're co-CEOs. And Hannah says, yeah, we're co-CEOs. but still, based on what the interviewer experienced in this article, it doesn't really come off as that. So Daniel shows the interviewer around with the kids and Hannah in like their 15-seater van. And she's told that she will sit down with Hannah one-on-one later in the afternoon. Who's telling her this? Like, did Daniel tell her this? Because why is he, like, telling her when she can, like, interview Hannah, like, one-on-one? And then the interviewer asks, do you want to fill the minibus, the 15-seater minibus? And Daniel says, someday, yeah. And then Hannah says, we're getting old and worn out, so we'll see. It's just like, you can just tell that Daniel constantly wants more kids, only wants her to do the childcare rearing. It's like, but she's pushing the kids out. She has to deal with them 25/8. And they also have a lot of employees for the Ballerina farm business side. So I feel like when Hannah shows her milking the cows and stuff, like, that's kind of just for the TikTok videos. And then Hannah talks about her goal, and that was New York City, being a Juilliard-trained ballerina. So their upbringing, they both grew up Mormon, both big-ass families. Now we know that Daniel grew up as the son of the JetBlue founder, so his dad's a billionaire. They met in their 20s. And I didn't really want to date him at first, but Daniel did want to date her, so he was kind of chasing her. And he booked a plane ticket after finding out that she was taking a flight back to New York from Salt Lake, so he could sit next to her. He called JetBlue. He called his dad's company and asked to pull some strings. So that is a little stalkerish. And then they dated, and she originally wanted to date for a year so she could finish school, and Daniel said, it's not going to work. We've got to get engaged now. After a month, they were engaged. 2 months after that, they were married in an Upper West Side apartment. 3 months after that, she was pregnant. The first Juilliard undergraduate to be expecting in modern history. So this comes off as baby trapping. It really does. They got married literally months, like a month into dating. It's giving BYU TikTok interviews. Like, how fast did someone you know get engaged or get married? That's insane. So again, this shows that he has a plan. He wants to do something, and of course she has to follow along. And then they moved to Rio, where he became the director of his father's security company, and they already had 3 kids at this point. So this was like their early 20s. And Hannah says, our marriage was really hard for the first few years. Daniel interrupts, but we did have this vision, this dream, and we still do. Daniel says, our dream, which was basically his dream, was that he wanted to live in the great western wild, so they did. He wanted a farm, so they do. He likes date nights once a week, so they go. They have a babysitter on those evenings. The only time they have a babysitter with those, like, 8-9 kids. He didn't want any nannies in the house, so there aren't any. The only space earmarked to be Hannah's own, a small barn that she wanted to convert into a ballet studio, ended up becoming the kids' schoolroom. So she has no time for herself. Her wants, gone. What she wanted to do, gone. She wanted to be a ballerina, gone. Wanted to get married later, gone. Time for herself, gone. Her own ballet studio, gone. What does she have besides, like, TikTok? So, and then Daniel shows her the new dairy farm buildings while Hannah goes back to make lunch for the kiddos. we stop in an irrigation ditch, which he explains the offices, which he explains the milking stations, which he explains. I check my watch, feeling edgy. I want to just talk to Hannah. Just one more stop. And then Hannah calls him. And then saying that, like, she's ready or whatever. They go back so she can finally interview Hannah. And the kids are just going crazy. And she basically says, we only have half an hour to talk before the kids go to the ballet. So she says either Daniel or the kids are interrupting her, and she literally cannot talk to her alone. And then she talks about how the kids don't have technology, like they're in the Stone Age. They only have a house cleaner. Hannah makes all the food. No prepared meals, of course. But Daniel does do the laundry, and he is a hands-on father, but I feel like that's just, like, he holds the baby from when, like, Hannah's, like, in the bathroom or whatever. That's what that probably means. So Hannah has no time to herself. Then Daniel says, still, Hannah sometimes gets so ill from exhaustion that she can't get out of bed for a week. That is a little concerning. Someone on Reddit said that maybe it's the raw milk that they drink making them sick, but that is so concerning. Like, part 2 coming up.
Times recently interviewed Ballerina Farms and her husband and then released an article about it. I read the article today, and I want to talk about the most interesting thing that I took from that article. I am one of 7 children, for reference. Same mom, same dad. We did not grow up Mormon. I did grow up Catholic, and I am number 2 in that lineup. Something that happens when you grow up in a big family, especially if you are one of the older children in the lineup, is you quickly become parentified. This is especially the case if you are a girl. And what pinged me immediately about the Ballerina Farms article was when I saw the picture of her and her husband and all of her children. Honestly, the first thing I took stock of was the fact that her 3 oldest children are boys. As I'm reading the article, they make it very clear that they have a cleaner, and they don't have any nannies though. Somebody comes and homeschools their children, but for the most part, she is responsible for their care. She is the one that does all of the grocery shopping. Her husband does help out on the farm. He makes a big show of saying that they are a team, but it's very clear that she is the one doing the majority of the work, especially since they said in the article that a lot of days she is laid the F out from being exhausted from taking care of all of those children. Right before they said that though, they brought up the fact that the kids operate as their own little ecosystem and generally look after each other. As someone who comes from a big family, the only way that works, even if both parents are heavily involved, is if the older siblings are somehow watching over or picking up the slack for the younger siblings. I have 3 thoughts about the ways it could go for her sons, who are clearly the oldest, who are clearly helping their mother out and are taking on some type of parent role in this household. Whoever they end up marrying and ultimately having children with, if they go that route, they are going to be amazing fathers. They are going to tap in and be hands-on parents. That's scenario number 1. Scenario number 2, they have spent so much of their youth surrounded by children and helping their mom watch their younger siblings that they're probably going to be a little resentful in some way, shape, or form. And maybe not resentful, but grow up not wanting children of their own. My older sister is in LA living her best life. She ain't got no kids. Me, next month, it'll be 8 years since I've been married. I've been with my husband for 13 years. We ain't got no kids. If it happens, wonderful. If it doesn't happen, that's okay too. The sister after me has 1 child, and she's probably team 1 and done. The third scenario, and I think this is the more likely scenario, but I really hope not for the sake of these men's future partners, they will have watched their mom have child after child after child and has accomplished really great things. You know, she just won her beauty pageant. She's bounced back. She's running this farm. She's doing it with no help, or very little help anyways. They'll have watched her do all of this, view their mom as like this superwoman, put her on a pedestal, and anyone they partner with afterwards, they will think that that is normal, and their wives, the mothers of their children, should take on that burden as well because of the values and the teachings of the religion they are being raised under and in. That is what they preach. They will have watched their mother struggle for all of these years and be like, yeah, Now that's a woman. That's a wife right there. That's what I want in a wife for myself. All of that remains to be seen. Her boys are still children. They're 12, 10, 9 years old. They don't got to worry about it. It just struck me as very interesting as someone who grew up in a family and who did take on the role of helping out my parents with my younger siblings. But I have taken that approach from obviously a girl child's and now a woman's perspective. And I've never seen it talked about from a boy's perspective. Not only from a boy's perspective, but how it impacts them as men when they are dating and when they become fathers, if they choose to become fathers. Just very interesting.
Can't be the only one that feels bad for Hannah and Ballerina Farms, but for a different stance. I would be incredibly upset if I had opened my home to the Times or any interviewer and they had left and just wrote a complete hit piece when I was vulnerable enough to let them into my home and show them my life. I would be heartbroken, really, that that person was able to go home and write something so nasty about me and my family. And to me, this is a complete hypocrisy of feminism. The article paints Hannah to be this browbeaten wife that cannot make choices for herself and that her husband continues to cut her off throughout the entire time she's there for the interview and tries to isolate the woman writing the article. She references multiple times in the article that she cannot get Hannah alone. Now, why I think this is incredibly hypocritical to feminism is because they are painting Hannah in this light like she was never able to make choices for herself. Hannah did not have a weapon to her head saying, marry me, have these kids, make these choices, I am making you. She made these decisions just as much as her husband did. So to say that as a woman and to paint a picture that she is not able to, as a woman, make choices is not feminism at all. In fact, you're doing the exact opposite by saying that a woman cannot make choices on her own. It's very clear that the woman writing this article went in immediately with an agenda. Now, if I had to sit there from Hannah's point of view, I would be so beyond angry. I would be so upset to open my comment section on me just living my life with my beautiful 8 children that I chose to have with my husband, of women saying, I hope you dance, I hope you do this, all these keyboard warriors, because that is so beyond performative and does not do anything. You are literally saying that she does not have a choice and she never had a choice and that she has made the wrong choice as a woman to live on this farm with her husband and have these children. You are talking, as a woman, you are talking down to another woman, and that could not be farther from feminism. You're also telling her by commenting these things that her lifestyle choice is wrong, when in reality, you're just talking down to her at this point. You are telling her that she should not have made these choices from your biased opinion to have all these kids. There are a lot of people out there that would choose her life and live on a farm and have a beautiful stove and have a beautiful life and be able to have the resources to do what she does. Now, I am not Mormon, nor will I ever be, but you also have to remember that Hannah grew up Mormon as well as her husband. She is the 8th of 9 siblings, so I'm sure there's a family tradition that she also wanted to pass down, seeing that she's not the only one in the family who has chosen this lifestyle, as her sisters and brothers have too. I believe there's like 50-something grandkids. I just really hope that people understand that doing this to her is so beyond harmful. She is choosing to live the life she has, and she, as a woman, is empowered by choosing this life. She is not oppressed. Not to mention, on top of raising 8 children and making these homemade meals to make sure her family is healthy, she runs a multi-million-dollar business. She's a boss, and she's what a lot of women haven't done. She's accomplished more than what a lot of women haven't. I realize in today's society that the woke feminists could not be farther from an actual feminist, and we're just going backwards. And it's really disappointing to see. And as far as this whole egg apron thing, nobody was there in person except for her and her husband. Nobody knows the backstory of the situation. First of all, she opens the box and she says, my egg apron, as if they have discussed before that she had wanted this egg apron. Nobody knows if he gave her tickets to Greece. She could have opened a box after that video with tickets to Greece. nobody was actually there in the situation. So to blow up her phone and say, tickets, what are you doing to her? What do you think is happening? Moral of the story is that women are empowered simply just by being women, and it is not a feminist movement by saying that women don't have choices. And we should support Hannah and be nice to her in her lifestyle because she is incredibly successful as well as her husband.
Okay, so Hannah Nealman is absolutely a victim. Ballerina Farm. She's absolutely a victim. I think that man, it sounds like he was like hunting her down, like to entrap her. And when they first got together, it sounds like she wanted to finish her education. She was expecting to graduate from Juilliard, but then she just magically found herself living with him and married and pregnant, and she had to drop out. And I think she's absolutely a victim. But it's interesting that when other women who talk about their lives and their dreams being stolen by their husbands and by having children, when people come on this app and talk about that, it seems like the comment section is not as empathetic. Specifically, I remember a video, or maybe it was a couple videos of different like Black mothers coming on here and talking about how they had a dream before they had children, and it's so hard and it's so devastating. And then everyone in the comments is like, you could have put this energy into pursuing your dream, like instead you're on here like whining and crying to us. And I don't think that's the response to like working class Black mothers, and I don't think that's the response to Hannah Nealman. I think that you guys need to check your misogyny, because it really is just like, I mean, like people are saying they don't like Hannah Nealman because she's white and she's wealthy. She's not wealthy, her husband is wealthy. And I think that that's just like their excuse for hating on a woman. And then when it comes to the non-white women who try to express the same frustration, obviously it's the same misogyny, but with racism sprinkled on top to boot. And I think that we really need to think about like why so many of us, and like women too, like childless women, have developed a disdain for women who have children, and they've developed a disdain for children themselves. I think that it's because, and I made a video not long ago about how women who do have children, how mothers can often have a disdain for childless women. I think that now the childless women have taken that and kind of misdirected the frustration with the whole narrative that you should have children, or that a woman is just not complete unless she's a mother. I think it's really important to keep in mind that there are a lot of wives and mothers out there who are victims. They are essentially like domestic slaves, and even though they take their frustration out on childless women, it's still really important to remember that like children especially do not deserve your contempt. And these women who have been entrapped by men and entrapped into domestic slavery, they deserve your empathy.
Okay, I finally got a chance to read the New York Times article on Ballerina Farm. Let's talk about it. I have loved this content because obviously it's like a fairy godmother type situation where she's just good at everything she does. She does ballerina, she does Miss America, Miss Utah. She has 8 kids that she has unmedicated. She makes everything from scratch. In my mind thinking, okay, you know, this is a facade that she puts on for social media. She has help behind the scenes. People are helping her film. People are helping her cook meals. People are helping her homeschool her children. She has a nanny, all this stuff. And according to this article, the only help that they have is a house cleaner once a week. When she was asked about if this farm that they're running, this business, this life that they're living, if this was her dream, she immediately said no. She wanted to be a ballerina. But, you know, life has some changes and, you know, life turned a different direction. And when they asked her husband how he felt about this, that this was the life that he always had envisioned for himself, of course he said yes. He also is the one that doesn't want a house cleaner. He also is the one that wants fresh meals from scratch every single day. He doesn't want help. He wants her to be doing all of these things. Hannah's husband, Daniel, also pointed out the fact that sometimes Hannah gets so overly exhausted that she can't get out of bed for a whole week at a time because of everything that she has on her plate.
Another point I found really interesting was when the author of this article asked her if she had all of her kids unmedicated without any epidural, and she said all but 2. And she said one of them she had an epidural with because her husband wasn't there because he was back home doing something on the farm while she was giving birth. And the author asked her, oh, was the epidural amazing? And she kind of whispered like, yeah, it was amazing, because her husband was on the phone in the other room and she didn't want her husband to hear that she loved having medication to ease her birth. She was asked if she was a feminist because, hello, she's a girl boss. Like, she's such a badass. She was asked if she was a feminist, and she said, I do think I'm and then she stopped and she looked at him and did a different answer. And the author also said at the end of the article that there was not one time where she was able to get a direct answer out of Hannah without her looking at her husband, him talking over her, or him correcting her. It was never just a set answer with her. So it makes me really sad because I kind of thought that this portrayal that she had of her family and of herself online was, you know, just for like online, and like she had all this help behind the scenes. And no, this is like their real life. And it makes me so sad for her. She gave up her dreams, and yes, obviously she loves motherhood, she loves her life, but like she gave up everything and he gave up nothing.
I'm going to say something kind of controversial about the Ballerina Farms Times article. Everyone's like praising this writer for the article and how she wrote it, but I personally think it was kind of messy and wrong for her to go in someone's home, spend the whole day with them, and literally trash the husband, which, yeah, we're all like, yeah, good, he is trash. We all know this, but that's her husband, that's her family, and I'm sure she doesn't feel good about that article today, and she's home with the same man alone, who I'm sure is giving her a lot of backlash about this. I feel very bad for her.